They are spitting in our face saying, you don't get no real story. You get a tournament that's going to be boring as all hell because you'll just accept it because it's John Cena's last match. What up, everybody? Been a couple weeks since I did a pro wrestling video, so it's what I'm going to do right now. I'm going to try and designate Mondays as pro wrestling day, maybe when it comes to the soapbox. I do have my gripes still, of course, with the way they've decided to just book this entire year. And it's nice to see both companies actually have some consequences for their actions, with TV ratings being down quite a bit. SmackDown ratings falling below 1 million is not a good thing for the WWE. And the excuse is that Nielsen has changed the way that they do their TV ratings. But everything I read about it, it's Nielsen having more accurate TV ratings. So it's still not good that with accurate TV ratings, SmackDown's ratings on USA Network are falling below 1 million. But they're not the only ones. WWE, I feel like, is getting all of the crap, but AEW is falling below 500,000, which is also awful, especially for a company that can't get people to their shows. They're now struggling over at AEW to get 2,000 to 3,000 people to watch a Dynamite. It's not good. You would think at some point maybe the light bulb would go off in someone's head in the wrestling business that we need to get back to telling some compelling storylines with some compelling wrestlers, and their personas got to be compelling. But we're not getting that at all in either company. Over in the WWE, ticket prices are out of control. I mean, even for nosebleeds in a big city these days, you're going to be paying $400 to $600 for a nosebleed ticket, which is outrageous, especially for a show that you're not going to be invested in because they're not investing in storylines. Cena's last opponent being because of a tournament goes back to what I said all of last month in the few wrestling videos I did. And I know not too many people will probably watch this, but this entire storyline with John Cena, I think they gave up after the heel turn was botched or just flopped, because since then they have been giving no kind of creativity to John Cena's final year in wrestling. They're just seeing it as, well, everyone's going to want to watch John Cena for the last time in their cities. People are going to buy tickets. People are going to watch the events because it's John Cena's last time. But imagine how good it could have been if we got some actual storylines woven in. And to me, the fact that they're doing a tournament to decide John Cena's last opponent is the final spit in the face of the fans. They are spitting in our face saying, you don't get no real story. You get a tournament that's going to be boring as all hell because you'll just accept it because it's John Cena's last match. It's really bad. And with that happening in the WWE, which is a big example of Triple H not trying to give us good stories, over at AEW, the alternative is just so bleak and so boring. AEW has these stale, drawn out stories, if you even call all of them that. It's just not good booking. I mean, it's typical Tony Khan. I feel like in Tony's brain, he sees these drawn out stories for the sake of them being drawn out as long-term booking. But it's more like 50-50 booking, with the Bobby Lashley Ricochet stuff. It's 50-50 booking just to prolong the feud and keep people happy, allegedly. It's not good long-term booking. It gets stale very quickly when you have the same people in the same feuds for months at a time. And if we were maybe getting some different feuds in like the mid card, it might be better. But it's kind of just been more of the same for certainly the last 2 months. But for a lot of these stories, goes way beyond that. And clearly these stories are not drawing people to the arenas to watch the shows. So I don't know how Tony thinks these stories are working, so let's just keep prolonging them. But the fact is, not enough people in the wrestling business critique Tony Khan. I mean, we saw over the past week and a half Dave Meltzer being caught taking a phone call from Tony Khan.
You end up back where you were, just with a lower price. So anyway,
I don't know if this is going towards the theory that Tony Khan pays Dave Meltzer to be a shill for AEW, which is probably likely. Meltzer will defend AEW at all costs. How anyone even listens to Meltzer, I will never know, but he has gained an audience over the decades that pay him $15 a month for total bullshit most of the time. But Meltzer is someone that Tony Khan would listen to, and it's why AEW is in the spot that it's in. Meltzer does not like storylines. Meltzer does not like characters. Meltzer just wants moves and matches. And that about sums up AEW, which is why I know that phone call from Tony was real, because everything Tony does in AEW is what Dave Meltzer loves. Tony Khan books for the Dave Meltzers, not to grow an audience, not to actually give us compelling TV. No, let's just put on long matches that don't mean shit so everyone could kick out of everyone's moves, and Meltzer will call it a good match, so Tony Khan thinks it's a win. It's pretty pathetic, actually, but that is the state of AEW. Over in WWE, the one thing I guess I did like over the past week was the Raw segments with Punk and Logan Paul and the Vision, where they teased Logan Paul possibly making a face turn by helping CM Punk at the beginning of the program when the Vision came out and attacked him. It was after Braun Breaker pushed Logan Paul down. Logan decided to go back and help Punk when Braun Breaker and Bronson Reed were beating on Punk. Then at the end of the show, Logan Paul saves CM Punk and Jey Uso, but then Logan Paul has brass knuckles on, punches Punk, and hands the brass knuckles to Paul Heyman. So I don't know if Logan's joining the Vision, if this is just something to build to War Games at Survivor Series, but I did think these segments were at least effective in at least being interesting to me. A few other interesting news stories, though, that I do want to get into. We have quite a bit. We have walkouts in AEW. We have Vince Russo booking wrestling again. We have Swerve Strickland showing us an example of why AEW fails so much. And then we have Ridge Holland possibly being a scammer. So over in AEW, Nixon Newell and Miranda Elise walked out of the tapings on Saturday for Collision. Nixon Newell is probably best known for being Tegan Nox in the WWE, and Miranda Elise is her girlfriend. They debuted in AEW like a week ago, where they lost their match in their debut. They were set to lose another match this past weekend against Tay Mallow and Anna Jay, which obviously did not end up happening because they left. Reports are saying that it's because of the time in the match and not because they were booked to lose the match again. They were only given 3 minutes in the match, and I guess they felt that they were just becoming AEW jobbers in their debut. There's two sides to this. Do I think they should have walked out? No, I think that's very unprofessional for two people trying to get a job, and for someone who in the WWE was and never was. Tegan Nox never delivered anything. So it's not like she's this big name in wrestling that could just really throw her weight around to get some extra time. So on one hand, it is very unprofessional. On the other hand, it is once again a problem in AEW, because for years, before the women's revolution in the WWE, many fans were giving WWE gripes for the little time women's matches would get in the WWE. But now when AEW does the same thing, of course, there is the hardcore fan base that will defend it around every turn. But it's an issue in the WWE when it happens. But if it's AEW, let's make a bunch of excuses. I'm sure Meltzer plays a part of that by being paid off by Tony Khan himself. So while I do see it as unprofessional, I kind of do get it. I do want to read one of Newell's quotes from a Twitch stream. She said, "We turn up Saturday hanging around, not told anything until just after doors open. We're told, you're wrestling TJ, cool. We come up with a bunch of ideas and we're ready. They walk away, come back. By the way, it's 3 minutes. Nobody is going to be happy with 3 minutes," Newell said. At no point did the ensuing disagreement become contentious, according to Newell. There was no shouting or swearing, just respectful conversation. But, other wrestlers in AEW coming to AEW's defense, of course, that's what they got to do, defend Tony Khan's decision making. I still think they're unprofessional for not wanting to do the job, even if it's just 3 minutes. But I do think that AEW has a problem when it comes to booking women. They don't give the women a lot of time. The same people complaining that Julia lost her title in such a short amount of time in a match are probably the same people trying to defend AEW for this decision, which I think is hypocritical. But people in AEW always show their asses online, and Swerve Strickland, who I do like, does this a lot on Twitter. AEW has a problem where their wrestlers will be petty on social media, be passive aggressive on social media, and Tony Khan doesn't do anything about it because he's not a real boss. He wants to be everyone's friend and not a boss. It's just one of the many reasons why AEW fails the way it fails. There was a post online saying 2 quick things on ex-WWE wrestlers. There are people in AEW right now who refuse to do jobs. Swerve posted some emojis waving, which made it seem like it was a shot at Bobby Lashley, who was in the picture. If that was the case, I think that was a very stupid post from Swerve Strickland, because he is someone that came from the WWE too, and he hasn't done that many jobs. I mean, yeah, he's lost some big matches, but he went through a point entering the company and winning a lot of matches himself. So I don't know why he's taking this shot at Bobby Lashley. I think it's stupid. I think it's petty. I think AEW should be pushing Bobby Lashley and Shelton Benjamin way more than they are, instead of keeping them in the tag team division box. And now possibly moving on to trios after this. They're stuck in this nowhere feud instead of being pushed as someone that can help the company. Meanwhile, Swerve's out with an injury right now, so I don't even know why he's involving himself. Maybe he wants to stay relevant. He could stay even more relevant if he would just return and do a good job, but I don't know. The pettiness behind the scenes at AEW, it's part of many reasons why AEW is failing. It's a failing company when it comes to actually having fans. Like, Tony Khan has all this money. Yeah, they got a good TV deal. Meltzer will defend that with his life because he's getting paid by Tony Khan. But at the end of the day, they can't get people into arenas, even at cheap prices, especially compared to WWE. And their ratings are failing too, similar to WWE's. Vince Russo, an always controversial figure in pro wrestling, is now booking for JCW, Juggalo Championship Wrestling. So we might at least have an alternative where there will be storylines and characters. I did try to check it out, and there is definitely a lot more for potential stories over on JCW. Russo just started though, but they already had some storylines coming in before Russo. They have their own little Dominic and Rey Mysterio feud going on with Ricky Morton and his son, and they have some crazy characters like this guy named Cocaine who does cocaine. So they've got a lot of characters. They have these zombies, which is not my favorite thing. A lot of larger than life characters, some of which I don't like, some of which has potential, but at least there will be stories on that show if anybody wants to check it out on YouTube. Last thing I want to talk about is Ridge Holland, or at least he used to be Ridge Holland in the WWE. He is now going by his real name, Luke Menzies, who has been complaining about being released from the WWE despite being injured. Someone allegedly in his family started a GoFundMe, which a lot of fans and even some wrestlers were donating to, which became controversial online because it's like you were a WWE wrestler, you didn't save up money. Why do people donate to celebrities? It's kind of true. There's plenty of people out there with real GoFundMes that actually need help that weren't working for the WWE. Now, I don't think Ridge has made this big amount of money in the WWE. He was never on a high level in the WWE. I think a lot of people don't like Ridge because he is responsible for ending Big E's career. He's the one that injured Big E, put him out of action because he was a subpar worker. I don't think Ridge Holland has it as a worker in wrestling. He did have an era there where he was injuring people because he was a sloppy worker. So I actually understand why there is a lot of vitriol against him. Nobody likes a sloppy wrestler, especially someone that ended someone big's career. Then to go online and have a GoFundMe started after him, he has since ended the GoFundMe. He's keeping the money though. He's now saying he will donate said money after he gets back into getting a job in wrestling and making money. But I think that's coming off as controversial as well because all these people just gave him money. Now he's saying he's going to donate the money, which confused people because they're like, why are you donating money when people donated the money to you? I think Ridge just maybe needs to stay offline for a while and work on recovering and work on getting a job. And then maybe he can change the view about him when it comes to the wrestling fans. I don't think it's going to happen. I think a lot of people will always see him as the man that ended Big E's career, which I think he knows, which is maybe why he has decided to try and play the victim online over the past week and have this GoFundMe made. He says he didn't know the GoFundMe was made, but I don't know if I believe that part necessarily, but he has definitely been controversial over the past week in pro wrestling. Some of these stories outside of pro wrestling have become way more interesting than what's actually going on the show. If these petty AEW wrestlers can bring their pettiness from social media into storylines on the actual product, it would be far more interesting than the stale storylines AEW is delivering.